we get sucked in, either as a client or as a coach, being the one who knows, of having the value of the relationship being based on imparting information or giving answers. And that is not coaching. In this series of Coaching for Coaches, I'd like to invite you into a conversation about the methodology at the heart of coaching. And whether you're beginning your coaching journey, or you're an experienced coach, or you're somebody who wants to adopt some of the skills of coaching into your own day-to-day work and life, we're going to have conversations about what it really means to coach. I'd like to share with you an idea about what makes coaching so powerful. And it's actually a radical notion that as we engage with people, we're actually seeing people and working with people in a way that's very uncommon in the world today. And it's rooted in the idea of love and seeing the full potential and possibility in our clients as whole and resourceful people, as opposed to seeing them as damaged and broken and less than. Almost all of us have grown up in a deficit-oriented culture. We have constant messages about how we're not good enough, and we're in a hierarchical environment where status and strength and success are defined as something outside of us. We're literally structuring our societies around these hierarchical models, perhaps grounded in patriarchy, that are about making some people less than. This is the pervasive context in which we're growing up and learning and working. Either we're in the in-group or we're in the out-group. Either we're in a position of power or powerlessness. And in that paradigm, it's almost impossible to see ourselves and each other as whole. As a result, we get sucked in, either as a client or as a coach, to being the one who knows, of having the value of the relationship, the value of the interaction being based on imparting information or giving answers. And that is not coaching. If you're engaging with a client and you know the answer and you're pushing that on them, you're not coaching. You're doing something different, and you're getting sucked in to that hierarchical method of thinking about compliance. And it's not actually about motivating people. It's about getting people to follow your idea. And that might be okay. There are places in our societies where hierarchy and command and control are firmly entrenched. And maybe what you want is compliance. Maybe what you want is just to tell people what they're supposed to do and have them do it. But don't confuse that with coaching, and don't confuse motivation with compliance. When we move into this power differential, and we move into one person being above the other in their knowledge or in their positional power, what happens is the other person, by definition, is disempowered. But what I call the first rule of emotional intelligence is that when people feel pushed, they resist. When we're in this place of, I'm going to tell you what to do, what we're automatically doing is putting the other person into a place of resistance. And either they're going to give up on their idea, they're going to give up on their power and comply, or they're going to stay in resistance. That approach is transactional, and it's the norm. But I think at the heart of coaching, and certainly transformational coaching, is a different kind of relationship. Many years ago, Annabelle Jensen, the president of 6 Seconds, said to me, I love people into change. It's been over 20 years, and this idea has rattled around in my head and in my heart. This notion of loving people into change has been a question that I've been asking myself, and something that I've internalized into my own way of coaching. And in 6 Seconds, the organization that I lead, we have a principle which is that wisdom lives within. Central to this principle is the idea that we each have our own resourcefulness, whether that's us as coach or us as client. We have our own way of seeing. We have our own way of being. And the job of coach, the job of teacher, the job of facilitator, the job of friend is not to tell people what to do, but to invite people to find that wisdom that's inside. I mean, how often have you been in a conversation with a friend or a boss or a colleague who said to you, well, what you should do is? The message is they know better. How often are you giving unsolicited advice? This is the first step in engaging in this new way of acting as a coach, of responding as a coach, of being as a coach, is to notice yourself, notice your pattern in this place of being over others, of being right over them, of being the director. And just challenge yourself to notice. And for myself, what I've seen is that there are so many times when I'm telling instead of asking. And even here, I don't want to tell you to do this. I want to invite you to say, what if we could step into this other way of interacting? Does that feel valuable to you? And if it feels valuable to you, then I suggest one path is to start noticing when we're engaging in this normal, hierarchical way. Another source that's inspired me in this approach to transformational coaching is a book by an ancient Chinese philosopher named Lao Tzu. He wrote the Tao Te Ching. And in the book, there are a collection of poems. In many of the poems, he talks about water. In chapter 78, he talks about how water is soft, and yet it transforms stone. Not by this direct approach, not like a billiard ball smacking into another ball and moving it, but almost like a guitar string when you pluck it, and the string next to it starts to vibrate. Because it's the nature of that string. Because this first string, when it begins to vibrate in that way, it creates a resonance, literally, with this second string. And there's something about the string that's next to it and the first string that they begin to work together. Water is flowing through the stone. And as water flows, softly, patiently, it begins to create transformation. In this poem, he says the seer sees the possibilities. The seer sees opportunities, not problems. For me as a coach, this means that I look at my clients as whole and resourceful. I look at my clients and I see the incredible potential that they have, the perfection in where they are, and the journey that they're on. This brings us to the third challenge or opportunity or doorway to this form of coaching. And that is about how we see ourselves. When I'm standing in this place, it's really a place of common ground. It's a place that's not about ego. It's a place that's not about one of us being above the other. It's not a place of us even being separate. In that place, I don't just see the wholeness in my clients. I see it in myself. And I think this offers one of the biggest challenges and clues to this way of coaching. Can we stop seeing ourselves as damaged? Can we stop seeing ourselves as less than or more than? Can we stop being in this place of defensiveness? When we can be that guitar string just sounding purely and freely, it resonates with the strings around it. This is the work of emotional intelligence for ourselves as coaches. And I wish that I could tell you that I was always able to be in that space. And I'm not. But I can be there more. And I find that when I step into this role of coach, it's a teacher for me. It's a reminder for me. It's an invitation for me to see the world in a different way. To see the world in a way where we are on this journey together, where we are learning together. And I can appreciate the perfection of the imperfection. I can appreciate the idea of growth itself is something transformational. I can feel that sense of loving people into change. So I encourage you to practice this awareness of noticing when you get sucked in to this hierarchical norm. And I'd love to hear your ideas in the comments about what happens and what helps you shift into this new way of engaging.